Hello, my name is Philip Forchios, and my capstone project is titled Hip Hop's View on Modern American Social Injustice. I will be reading a portion of my introduction on the analysis of Kendrick Lamar's album To Pimp a Butterfly. Coming off of the major success of his first album, Good Kid, Mad City, in 2013, Kendrick Lamar immediately began working on his second album. The Compton, California native focused his next album to show the United States of America through the eyes of the populations it has oppressed. Although the major values of the United States follow the ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, Kendrick Lamar challenges that head on and flips the narrative of our country completely. 2 years later, on March 15th, 2015, To Pimp a Butterfly was released to the public and received critical acclaim. The album was actually inspired by a trip Kendrick Lamar took to South Africa in 2014, a country with a similar background to the United States in terms of racism, inequality, and a lack of social justice. After returning back to Compton, Kendrick Lamar organized several producers in the genres of hip hop, jazz, R&B, and alternative music. The instrumentals laid down behind each track offer its own distinct flavor, sound, and attitude before Kendrick Lamar even begins to rap. The purpose of the large number of producers in the different genres coming together was a message of where African American musical culture has had a tremendous impact on those genres, respectively. Kendrick Lamar's lyrics on each track cover a plethora of topics, narratives, and messages that resonate with the mistreatment of African Americans in the United States. The album follows the lines of a poem that Kendrick wrote in 2014. The poem reads, I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. Sometimes I did the same. Abusing my power, full of resentment that turned into a deep depression. Found myself screaming in the hotel room. I didn't want to self-destruct. The evils of Lucy was all around me. So I went running for answers until I came home. But that didn't stop survivor's guilt. Going back and forth, trying to convince myself the stripes I earned, or maybe how A1 my foundation was. But while my loved ones were fighting a war back in the city, I was entering a new one, a war that was based on apartheid and discrimination. Maybe you want to go back to the city and tell the homies what I learned. The word was respect. Just because you wore a different gang color than mine doesn't mean I can't respect you as a black man. Forgetting all the pain and hurt we cause each other in these streets, if I respect you, we unify and stop the enemy from killing us. But I don't know, I'm no mortal man. This poem hovers over the album as it is played to the listener. What is unique about this album is that each line, and in some cases two lines, set up the theme and story for every individual song. While the poem does not come into the album until the very ending of the third track, King Kunta, Kendrick's message to the listener is alarming, eye-opening, and angry. Another point about the poem is that Kendrick delivers the whole poem by the end of the album. However, before or after most tracks on the album, he will deliver a line or two lines to set the tone for the next track. What unfolds are two intertwining stories that Kendrick creates for the listener. One is the poem that highlights the lesson he has learned growing up in Compton, as well as the lessons he gained during his trip to South Africa. The other story are the more specific details, messages, and emotions that follow each line of the poem. This version of storytelling is one of the most prolific and interesting approaches to a rap album that has ever been released. The poem itself is a version of freeform poetry where syllables, rhyming, schemes, and organization are not as significant. What is significant are the messages and stories that come out of the poem itself. If Kendrick Lamar's use of freeform poetry throughout the album allows listeners to specifically tap into each individual line from the poem. In other words, the songs on To Pimp a Butterfly are more specific concepts that derive from each line or two lines from the poem itself. When the poem and track come together with the harmonious yet disjointed instrumentation, what is present to the listener is this unfinished pattern. So this unfinished pattern represents the social shortcomings that still resonate in American culture. What is presented in the album are different puzzle pieces, large and small, that will never quite fit together. Instead, the concept of the United States in the eyes of Kendrick Lamar is simply a puzzle without all the pieces. There are admirable events throughout history that the United States has done to evolve its cultural standards, Yet To Pimp a Butterfly reminds us that there will always be one piece missing. Thank you.